came together today to rally against the Trump administration's.
Black people built this country. Black people can save this country. Media doesn't need to be scared of him. You need to be scared of us.
We got to stand up now and fight back and take our country back.
Significant threat from an unelected billionaire.
The world is turning against Trump. Protests are erupting across the U.S. His policies are triggering economic retaliation, and rivals like China, Russia, and Iran are seizing the moment. For the first time in decades, America's closest allies aren't just questioning U.S. leadership. They're actively pushing back. Meanwhile, adversaries are making bold moves. How did we reach this tipping point? And more importantly, why is Trump intensifying his most controversial decisions instead of retreating? The anti-Trump sentiment is exploding. Here's why. Across the United States, a wave of protests has emerged, reminiscent of the massive demonstrations seen in 2020. Domestic protests reach new heights. In cities like Detroit and Windsor, demonstrators have united across borders to protest President Trump's recent tariffs on Canada. These coordinated efforts highlight the growing domestic unrest. The Stand Up for Science 2025 rallies have drawn thousands, including notable figures like Bill Nye and former NASA Administrator Bill Nelson, protesting cuts to scientific research and the dismissal of government scientists. International backlash intensifies. Internationally, President Trump's decision to pardon over 500 individuals involved in the January 6th Capitol riot has been met with widespread condemnation. Leaders from Canada, Europe, and the Middle East have labeled it an attack on democracy, expressing deep concerns over the implications for global democratic values. Furthermore, the administration's reversal of climate policies and aggressive trade tariffs have strained relationships with traditional U.S. allies. Countries like Canada and Mexico have responded with reciprocal tariffs, signaling a significant shift in diplomatic relations. Even long-standing allies are now openly questioning America's leadership on the global stage, reflecting a profound shift in international dynamics. Why is Trump ignoring the backlash? Despite escalating protests and global criticism, President Trump remains undeterred, steadfastly advancing his agenda. This defiance is not merely a reaction. It's a calculated strategy integral to his political identity. Embracing chaos as a political strategy, Trump's political brand thrives on challenging the establishment. He perceives widespread dissent as validation of his mission to disrupt the status quo. To his supporters, opposition signifies that he's effectively draining the swamp, reinforcing their belief in his leadership. Influence of a loyalist inner circle. Central to Trump's resolve is his inner circle, composed of unwavering loyalists and hardliners who advocate for bold actions. Notably, Elon Musk, appointed as a senior advisor, leads the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE. Tasked with streamlining federal operations, Musk's involvement has sparked controversy due to his concurrent roles in private enterprises. Under Musk's guidance, DOGE has implemented Project 2025, aiming to overhaul the federal workforce. This initiative has led to significant layoffs, aligning with the administration's vision of a leaner government, redefining governance through unconventional measures. Trump's administration has undertaken unprecedented steps to reshape government operations. The Department of Government Efficiency, under Musk's leadership, has been granted extensive access to federal systems, raising ethical and legal questions. These measures, though contentious, are portrayed by the administration as necessary reforms to eliminate inefficiencies and assert executive control, doubling down as a perceived path to victory. In the face of criticism, Trump intensifies his efforts, interpreting backlash as a catalyst to rally his base. Actions such as reinstating Schedule F, facilitating the removal of federal employees, and restructuring key agencies underscore his commitment to fulfilling campaign promises. Each controversy is leveraged to fortify support among his followers, reinforcing the narrative that enduring resistance is essential to achieving their shared objectives. America is losing control of the world order. The United States, once the cornerstone of global stability, now finds itself at odds with its closest allies and facing bold moves from long-standing adversaries. Trade wars with allies escalate. In a move that stunned many, President Trump imposed 25% tariffs on imports from Canada and Mexico, citing national security concerns. This action has ignited a trade war, with both nations responding in kind. Canada's newly appointed Prime Minister, Mark Carney, emphasized that Trump's trade policies are harming American consumers and expressed readiness for comprehensive trade talks once mutual respect is restored. Erosion of trust among European allies. The Trump administration's unpredictable policies have led European officials to question the reliability of U.S. commitments. Discussions are underway about reducing dependence on U.S. financial systems and exploring alternative defense strategies. Germany, under Chancellor Friedrich Merz, has approved a $500 billion fund to bolster economic growth and military capabilities, signaling a significant shift towards self-reliance in defense. Adversaries capitalize on U.S. disengagement. Sensing a power vacuum, nations like China, Russia, and Iran are advancing their strategic interests. China is forging economic partnerships across Asia, Africa, and Latin America, filling the void left by U.S. isolationism. Russia is strengthening its alliance with Iran and pushing for a resolution in Ukraine that favors Moscow's interests. Iran-backed militias are increasingly assertive, directly challenging U.S. forces in the Middle East. These developments underscore a shifting global landscape, where U.S. influence is waning and new power centers are emerging. America's allies are preparing for a future without the U.S. In the face of unpredictable U.S. foreign policies, traditional allies are reassessing their defense and economic strategies, preparing for a future where American support is no longer guaranteed. Allied nations seek greater autonomy. Countries like Japan and South Korea, historically reliant on U.S. military presence, are now reevaluating their defense policies amidst a rising authoritarian China. Both nations are considering increased defense spending and fostering tighter alliances with regional democracies. Japan plans to raise its defense budget to 2% of GDP by 2027, while South Korea currently allocates approximately 2.8% of its GDP to defense. Discussions about new alliances, such as an Asian NATO, and defense collaborations, including Japan's agreement with the UK and Italy, are underway. NATO allies enhance defense capabilities. NATO is urging its members to boost their military capabilities by 30%, reflecting a significant shift towards self-reliance in defense. This move underscores a collective effort to strengthen military readiness in response to evolving global threats. Adversaries capitalize on shifting alliances. Sensing a power vacuum, nations like China, Russia, and Iran are advancing their strategic interests. The axis of upheaval, a term coined to describe the growing anti-Western collaboration among these nations, is becoming more prominent. China continues to purchase Iranian crude oil despite Western sanctions, strengthening economic ties. Russia relies on Iran for the supply of drones used in its ongoing conflicts, deepening their military cooperation. These developments underscore a shifting global landscape where U.S. influence is waning and new power centers are emerging. The final shift. Is this the end of U.S. global dominance? The United States, once the unchallenged leader of the free world, now faces unprecedented challenges to its global dominance. Erosion of economic leadership. The U.S. dollar, long the bedrock of international finance, is losing its luster. Aggressive trade policies and economic sanctions have prompted nations to seek alternatives, diminishing the dollar's supremacy. Global markets are reacting to these shifts. The U.S. stock market's previous outperformance is fading, signaling vulnerabilities in its economic stronghold. Rise of a multipolar world. As America's influence wanes, other nations are stepping into the void. China's assertive economic initiatives, such as the Made in China 2025 plan, aim to position it as a global leader in advanced manufacturing and technology. Simultaneously, traditional allies are rethinking their alliances. Countries like Australia and New Zealand are bolstering their defense capabilities, preparing for a future where U.S. support is uncertain. Implications for global stability. This shift towards a multipolar world carries profound implications. The established international order is fracturing, leading to potential economic volatility and geopolitical tensions. The question now looms: Can the United States adapt to this changing landscape, or is it on the brink of a major geopolitical crisis?